Okay, we're going to go through the problems on the Chapter 6 Quiz 1 review assignment. You can skip and go to only to the ones that you need. So let's get started. We're going to look at number 1. We have the variable I and the variable sum. And I is set up to be 2 right now, and the sum is 0. There's nothing on the screen. So the first thing we do is we hit the while loop, and the while loop says, is I less than or equal to 15? I is 2, and since 2 is less than or equal to 15, it's true. So we jump inside the loop, and sum is assigned whatever the sum is right now, which is 0, plus whatever the I is right now, and that's 2. So the sum is now going to be changed to the value of 2. And then now the next line down, I is going to be assigned whatever I is, which is 2, and it's going to add 2 to it. So I now becomes 4. And now that we're done with this line, we go to the next line is a brace that tells us to go back to the while statement. So in here, I is now, instead of being 2, is actually 4. And we see that right here in the memory location. 4 is less than or equal to 15. It's still true, so it jumps inside the loop, and the sum is now assigned to whatever the sum is, which now is 2, plus whatever the I is, and the I is now 4. As you can see in the memory locations, that's where you look. So now the sum is assigned to be 6. The next line, I is assigned to whatever I is plus 2. I is now 4. And so I is now assigned 4 plus 2, which is 6. The next line down is a brace that tells us that we need to go back to the while statement. So now as we look here, we will see that we're back here in the while statement, and I is now 6. And so is 6 less than 15 or equal to 15, which is still true. So we jump inside the while loop, and the sum is now assigned to whatever the sum is, which is 6, as you can see in the memory location, plus I is also 6. So sum is assigned to be 12. And then I is going to be assigned to whatever I is right now, which, as you can see, is 6 in the memory location. And 6 plus 2 is 8, so now it changes to 8. And then the next line is the ending brace for the loop, which tells us to go back to the while statement. I is now 8, and 8 is less than or equal to 15 still, so we're going to go and do this again. The sum is, however, now 12. It's no longer 6, because it's changed in the memory location. That's why we do the memory locations. And then I is now 8. That's why it's important to keep track of the memory locations. 12 plus 8 is 20, so now the sum has been changed to be 20. The next line down says I is assigned whatever I is now, which is 8, and adds 2 to it, so it's going to become 10. The next line is the ending brace for the loop, which tells us to go back to the while statement and check things out. Okay, now we're going to do a shortcut to finish this off. If you'll notice, right now we are currently I is 10 and sum is 20. And so if you'll notice the pattern going on here, that 2 plus 0 is 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. And 8 plus 12 is 20. So as we go on here, this is always going to be the pattern. So 10 plus 20 is 30. And then I is always increasing by 2. So the next time through, you're going to have I is 12 at the end, and then sum is 30. And then we add these two together, and now we have 42. And then I will change. So notice you change the sum, and then you go in and add 2 to the I, and so I becomes 14. And then the next time, let's go 14 plus 42 is 56. And at the end here, we'll add 2, and so I is 16. So at this point right here, I is now 16. And then we get to this brace, and we have to go back to the while loop, while statement, and see what's happening. Now I, we said, was 16 right now. 16 is not less than or equal to 15, so this is now false, which then tells us that we kick out of the loop. And the loop, of course, ends at this brace right here. So we're going to go to the next statement after the loop, which is to print the value of the sum. Well, the sum, the value right now, if we look on our memory location, is 56. So it's going to actually print 56. Okay, let's go to number 2 now. In number 2, we can see in our declarations that I is assigned 40 and J is assigned 10. So we have those in our memory locations right here. And so we go to the while statement, and it says, is I greater than J? So is 40 greater than 10? Which it is. So then we're going to jump in here and system.out.println, and we're going to print the value of I, which we look at the memory location and we see it's 40. So we're actually going to print 40. The next statement says I is going to be assigned whatever I is now minus 10. So I is currently 40, but 40 minus 10 is 30, so this will now be changed. We go to the next line is a brace, and the brace says go back to the while statement. And now instead of 30 is greater than 10, we're asking instead of 40 being greater than 10, we're asking is 30 greater than 10, which it is. So we're jumping back into the while loop, and we're going to print the value of I, so you look at your memory location and you see it's 30. Then I, in the next line down, is going to be assigned whatever it is now, which is 30 minus 10. So now I is 20. The next line is the closing brace. Go back to the while, and the question now is 20 greater than 10, which it still is. And so we jump in here and print I. I, if you look at your memory location, is 20. So we print 20. We just did this line, so now we're going to go to this line again. I is assigned 20 because that's the current value, and we're going to subtract 10, so we're going to get 10. So it changes to 10. The next line down is the brace. The brace says go back to the while statement, which we do, and now we're asking is 10 greater than 10, which it is not. So now this is false. So we kick out of the loop, and there's nothing past the end brace, so we're done.